On this episode of the Real Freedom Podcast, I had co-founder of Homebuyer, co-founder of Wholesaling Inc., someone that I've looked up to for a very, very long time in the space and that I learned from personally, Mr. Cody Hofhine. Back when I was a mechanical engineer, I would listen to that Wholesaling Inc. podcast on the way to work, working out, on walks, just filling my brain with positivity, and it gave me the confidence to go take massive imperfect action, as Cody Hofhine famously describes, and get out of your comfort zone and go live the life of your dreams. So you definitely won't want to miss this episode with Cody, where he talks about focus and winning habits to build a business empire. So without further ado, Mr. Cody Hofhine. Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast with your host, Ryan Weimer. Today, I've got Mr. Cody Hofhine with me. Cody, how are you?
Doing well, my friend. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. So guys, Cody, shameless plug for you. I want to start off this episode before we get into your biggest failure. And today, by the way, guys, is going to be all about focus and winning habits to build a business empire. So you won't want to miss this. Cody, you and Tom were the reason that I even got into real estate and I got into wholesaling to begin with. So I tuned into your podcast every single day. I would go to the gym, I would go on walks, and I would consume that like none other. But my engineer brain, my background was in mechanical engineering, and my engineer brain stopped me from taking that action for a couple of years. But I remember, I'm going to give you two quotes here that always stood out to me. Massive imperfect action is one, right? That really helped me get over the hump and start taking action for myself and improve my life. And the second one is progress, not perfection.
Love both of those. Love both of those. What an honor. What you just said is super kind. We had such a wonderful run with that podcast before we sold the company. And that was our baby. That was our baby. That was so fun. And to hear you say that, we had so many fantastic listeners for that podcast. And it really was awesome. But we said those things all the time. Progress, not perfection. Massive, imperfect action. And as the people do that, because there are people that have the engineer mindset that's going to be more data driven, more analytical, more build a perfect plan. It's like, there is no perfect plan on this. This one's like, fail your way forward and get out there and just make some mistakes.
100%. And now you founded multiple Inc. 5000 businesses. You co-founded Wholesaling Inc. You co-founded Homebuyer. You're a father, you're a real estate investor, you're a mentor, you're a coach. Most importantly, you're a go-giver. And so, man, I have a lot of things that I want to talk to you about today. But first, we love to start every episode getting into people's biggest failure.
Biggest failure. I love the question, because that brings us all back to humility, but also human. All those great things you just said, yes, they are a byproduct of actually making a ton of mistakes and failing a lot. Biggest failure, I would say, I've never been asked that before. You're going to think that's crazy, because that's a normal question. That's a normal question. That's a fantastic question.
Well, somebody like you as an entrepreneur, right? I think it's not a matter of finding one. It's like, which one do I pick to talk about, right? Because that's all it's about.
It. And I have to break myself back to earlier years of who Cody Hofhine is versus today, because I'm like, I don't know if they're failures. Like, every one of them been gifts. Right. And so I would say at the time, here's one I think that would resonate. Going out there and just almost being busy. And there was a point in my life where I was an insurance agent out there selling. This is prior to getting into investing and get into wholesaling and all the fun stuff with real estate. I was an insurance agent, and I would go out there day in and day out and I would knock doors. I didn't have a mentor. I would go out there and, like, insurance agents don't knock doors. I was like, hey, wow, do you want to quote? I'm in the neighborhood. I quote, like, if I was passing by someone that I'd done their policy and I wanted to go over it with them, it'd give me a reason why to go knock on a door and say, hey, I spoke to the Johnsons. I do their home and auto insurance. And I just thought, hey, I'm going to knock a few doors and just say, hey, I'm giving free quotes today. It worked, but it wasn't the greatest use of my time. And insurance policies pay so little. Going through this process for 5 years, and still 2015, not many years ago, guys, this is 9 years ago, coming home to a point where my wife was crying at the table. And she was wondering, do I put food on the table or do I pay for the mortgage? And so this is prior to Wholesaling Inc. This is prior to all of it. That failure that I felt as a husband, as a provider, as a father, it wasn't, my wife didn't make me feel that. I felt that. I felt that myself, because I still wasn't delivering on my responsibility. And so that probably resonates with some listeners instantly. Like, oh, it's still hard. We're still in the grind. We're still not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I sure as heck didn't. However, that failure led to what now, when you look hindsight, was the beginning dot to connect all these dots that now you can see connecting. You can never connect dots in front of us, but you can connect behind and say, oh, I needed to see my wife crying because 2 days later I was at a local real estate meetup that I've been going to every month for 5 years, not listening to real estate, but saying, oh, he has 4 rentals. Let's go up and talk to him and see if I can insure those rentals. I went with a different set of ears that night because of that gift, because of that failure. And this guy spoke. His name was Andy McFarland. Still remember it like it was yesterday. He said, I wholesaled a home. I found it. 3 days later, I made 29,000. I'm like that would change everything at the Hofhine household. 3 days. And so I talked to him, and that put me on this journey that 39 days after that conversation, I did my first wholesale deal that paid me $24,000. And the rest was history from there. So yeah, that was a huge failure, but that failure was a gift. And I guess I want to make sure I tie those two together so that people say failures really are happening for us.
100%. That is the whole theme of the show. And that's actually exactly why we start with that, because I remember listening to your and Tom's podcast, and I just thought, this can't be real. That was honestly my limiting belief because, and now in hindsight, it was easier for me to tell myself that, to not have to take action and not get uncomfortable. And I didn't realize that until I had this moment of pain where I got let go from one job and then passed up for a promotion for my other engineering job, where it was those moments of pain that really pushed me into taking that action. And so we all have that relative story for us of like, what if we're seeking pleasure or if we're seeking or running from pain, right? But I think pain is a powerful, powerful motivator if we can harness it and use it in the right direction.
So true. And it promotes two different mindsets, right? It promotes whether victimhood or promotes like leadership. Leaders are excited when it comes to painful moments. Leaders are not discouraged, but they gain courage when they have their pain points. Victims want to blame, right? They want to get discouraged. They lack courage. They want to say, oh, the economy's not right. Oh, this is not happening. Oh, the government isn't stepping in and helping me with this. Leaders do that. And I've had a victim mindset before. I've had it before where I'm like, maybe I'm not meant to have money. Maybe I'm not this, maybe I'm not that. But quickly I realized my life, my journey, it's up to me. No one owes me nothing. No one's going to save me. That's my job. That's my responsibility. And when I took pure ownership, 100% ownership, changed everything. When I saw everything from an abundant mindset, a glass half full versus a glass half empty, it just changed everything.
Yeah. And I think that comes across in Wholesaling Inc. and really everything you do. I mean, I've seen you speak at Family Mastermind a few times and really drive home these key points with that. You said it earlier, when we're busy being busy, we're not necessarily in the right place to really internalize that, because we hear something, but if it's at surface level and we don't go a layer deeper, we can't really use it.
That's right.
So I'm curious, were you always like, what was that moment where you became abundance mindset or became a go-giver, or was it always inside of you that just needed to be woken up?
No, I do remember a moment that helped me gain a lot of clarity on this. And I'm grateful for moments. I'm grateful for memories for what I'm about to share. So me and my wife, we would go on these walks. We were broke. She was such a support. She was such a strength to this whole story, by the way. I am not who I am today without the love and support of my wife. We have 4 kids. That's not an easy task to take care of. But more importantly, she's not a wife that went out and just spent money, like just threw money out there or overbought groceries. She was the coupon cutter. She was the person that's like, okay, this is rough, so I'm going to do my part as well to make sure the little money we have, it goes as far as possible. And she was really good at being a good steward of the money, the very little money we had. Here's where a couple experiences happen. There was an individual that would come to our house every so often, maybe once a month, let's call it. And he would just knock on the door, and it was a neighbor probably 4 doors down. And he would knock on the door and he'd say, hey, I was just thinking of you guys. And he'd bring like ice cream shakes, and they're from like Arctic Circle. And then he'd bring like plates of cookies another time. And every single time we were struggling to make it. I made $19,000 during the time that I'm telling you this story, with 2 kids, one on the way at this time.
Wow.
19,000 doesn't cut it. Like, we were debt free except for our home. We didn't have car payments. We didn't have any of that, but we did have a mortgage payment. And he would bring these. So we it didn't add up. 19,000 doesn't get you through the
Right.
year. When he would leave, he'd just leave so humble, like, enjoy those guys, have a great night. And he'd walk off. And we would sit down, and then at the bottom of the cup, there'd be money taped to it. Or in the plate of cookies, there'd be money taped to it. And it just happened to add up to be what we needed to get by that week, that next week. And I choke up a little bit, because I had this guy that had an abundant mindset. We didn't share to people how broke we were. We weren't telling us, oh me, oh my, but somehow he felt it. Somehow he knew it, and he would deliver these things, and there'd be money connected to it. Another experience, we would always go out and we'd just go dream. And we didn't call them dream walks at the time, but dream walks is what we do now. But we just go on walks, me and my wife. And my mom would come and watch our kids. She would think we're going out to dinner. We couldn't afford to go out to dinner, but we didn't tell her that, because I didn't want my mom to have to give us money and all this stuff, because she would have. We'd drive down the street, and we'd go around to a parking lot and park, so that our gas, we're just driving just to drive. We'd park in a parking lot, and we'd go walk the park, and we'd hold hands, and we'd just dream. We'd say, oh, what it's going to be like to live in a bigger house one day, and to do this, and we'll be able to host great parties and this. And we just dream. And we said a prayer that night. We just basically told God, we said, hey, when we make it big, it's not going to be just to bless our life. It's going to bless other people's lives. And a couple days from there, her brother was serving a 2-year mission for a church, and he lacked a bike. Her mom and dad were going through bankruptcy at the time. They didn't have any more money. We looked in our bank account, because we had committed to bless other people's life. And if there's someone that we need to bless, let us know. And this story comes up. He needs a bike. It's $500. And our bank account was maybe $600. So me and Wendy had this opportunity to say, okay, let's act upon what we just said we'd do. We paid the $500. And then within a few days, so we're down to $100. You can say, oh crap, how are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? Because it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. Within a few days, I'm at insurance again. And this guy comes in, and he wants his commercial policy quoted. He says, hey, I was just walking by. I saw you guys were on this corner, and so I wanted to see if you guys can quote this. Coincidentally, not coincidentally, right?
Right.
And this is a $20,000 policy when everything was said and done. I'd never done commercial policies. I'd only done home and auto, which were very small. So when I saw 20,000, I'm like, ugh. And I had the underwriter on the phone the whole time, because I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Underwriter, what do I push? Push this, type this, do this, do this. And so this guy is even more confident, because he's like, oh, this is not even the agent. This is the underwriter saying exactly what I'm getting. And I turned around and said, it's 20 grand. And he says, that looks good. And it's better coverage, and it's better price than my current policy. Let's go with it. Well, that paid me a 20% commission. That paid me $4 grand. Is it coincidence that happened? It's not, because that guy doesn't know me from anyone. He just saw our insurance office, came in, got a quote, closed. And it happened to be just shortly after the time that we committed to give money that was going to make us go down to next to nothing in our bank account. Those moments has what taught me abundance. I've been surrounded by great people with abundant mindsets, and we have tried it ourselves, and it has worked. And that has been all the difference for me to say, I've got to keep doing what we just did.
Those are some incredible stories. Thank you for sharing. Man, I don't know if you could ever put a figure on the number of people that you have impacted, both through the podcast or, your speeches, your talks, sellers that you've helped. If you had to put a figure on number of people that you've helped through this journey since then, what do you think that would be?
I would hope a lot. One of our core values at home. And so we're in a rental right now. We're building a home. But one of our core values, if you see that, is a heart for others. And then we have our definition for our family, what that means. Well, heart for others is also a core value at Homebuyer, a company that me and my business partner have. And that's really what it's all about, is not doing it for money, doing it for heart for others. I hope it's a lot. I don't know the number. I'm not a massive name out there. There's definitely bigger people out there than me. But even if it's just one, I'm satisfied with that. But I know it's more than one. I really care about people. I really have a heart for others. And I make sure that if I'm going to put a product out there, or whatever I'm going to do, or if I'm going to work with a seller, that they're going to experience magic. They're not just going to experience a transaction per se. I'm really experience driven kind of guy. Make sure that they had magic delivered to them. There's a difference between Six Flags and Disneyland. I don't want them to have a Six Flag experience. I want to have a Disneyland experience, right? And so trying to find ways to always just over deliver and make sure that we do our part to give them the best chance possible to move on to plan B.
Yeah, well, it's no surprise why you've had massive success, and your authenticity. For those people listening to this, I mean, this is the authenticity of what Cody is saying is just off the charts. And I know in the social media age, I do want to ask you about coaching and some things, but it's hard to tell who's for real and who's not a lot of times, because people say things, they're doing things, but you're living this and you can feel it and you can see it, right? And I just think that speaks to the kind of person you are and the aura of your existence. So I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing that stuff.
Yes.
Now let's get into focus of what winning habits build a business empire.
I love habits.
Yeah.
I love habits. This is more what I'm excited about in life. So when you ask this question, you'll see a fire in me go up, because I heard this quote last week and it's like been burning within me. I bet I've shared it now no less than probably 25 times. So this would be time number 26. And that is, it's less about external strategies and more about internal mastery. So many times we're looking at like, what's the next marketing channel? Or if I send out more marketing, then I'll get more leads. And if I get more leads, then I get more contracts. If I get more contracts, I get more money. And it's always about like the strategy. And I spent a lot of time now with an individual. His name is Robin Sharma, a mentor and dear friend of mine. And it's so funny how he teaches nothing on strategy, like zero. It's all about the work I need to do with myself. And so let's talk about those habits. Where do you want me to start with? Is it like morning routines? Is it things that allow me to stay focused during the day? There's habits that do help me win at a higher level. There are things that I share with the world that as I hear some come back, very few maybe come back. But for those that come back, they're like, oh my gosh, I tried this and it worked. What would serve your community best? And I'd be glad to hit on habits, because I love habits. This is where the game has changed.
Absolutely. Let's do focus first.
Okay.
Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, right, they're prone to this shiny object syndrome. And as you just described, the word strategy can sometimes be a sexy phrase for inaction, or what's the word Brent Daniels loves to use? Creative avoidance, right?
Yeah.
We're doing everything but the boring work. So let's start with focus.
Yeah. So it really is having better awareness. There's another quote that Robin uses: better awareness leads to better choices leads to better results. It's just a circle of those three things. So the key is, how do we get just more aware? So there's calendar stuff that you need to do. And I like bookends. So my Mondays and Fridays are kind of my meeting days, and my Tuesdays through Thursdays kind of my creative days. So getting just a handle of just your calendar already starts to help that. Because if you're just responding to how life comes in, it now owns you versus you owning it. I don't want that life. And there's times where it still hits me. I want to say it's still where I have to like, yep, not that day. Or, oh, I said yes to that, and now I wish I wouldn't have said yes to that because it doesn't fit within this time frame. So that's one thing, calendaring, just blocking out time that you have no distraction. This baby, hopefully you put it in a Ziploc, and then in a different room. Like, tie it away, making sure that your email's not up. Like, so many people, I see their computer screens, their emails up. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I would never get anything done if that thing was up. So I don't even see my email. I have a executive assistant that literally goes through all my emails. Sometimes she responds as Cody Hofhine. Sometimes she'll respond as Allison and say, hey, I'm Allison, Cody's assistant, and I got to this quicker than he would, knowing that you would love a fast response. And people love it, right? And so then she'll respond as me. Then there's stuff that she's like, he doesn't need to see that. He doesn't need to see that. He doesn't need to see that. So she's trained to go through all this. And then she'll send me a text. And she knows at a certain time of the day, I'll go through her text where she says, hey, so-and-so sent this. And she'll copy paste the email. I'll look at it and say, respond doing this. And then she does it. So I just minimize the stuff that are low level activities and keep focused on those high revenue generating activities, or at least high energy producing activities. Because not everything has to be revolved around money. It can be going on a date with my wife. It could be meeting her for lunch. That's just as important to me as $1 million contract. I know it sounds crazy, but that's how I think, because I love her more, and that relationship means more to me than $1 million. The one that I love It's called the victory paragraph. This is very tactical, very easy that any listener can listen to, because I don't want them to say, okay, well then what's the how? Here's a how you can do that I love. The victory paragraph is where you are going to, this is what's going to give us better awareness, better choices, better results. If I'm going to go on a lunch date with my wife, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write a victory paragraph. I'm going to show up to lunch. I'm going to leave my phone in the truck. I'm going to open the door for my wife. I'm going to tell my wife she looks beautiful today. I'm going to hold her hand while we're in line ordering the food, whatever, right? What did I just do? I just created awareness. Now, when I get to the restaurant, I'm walking out and I'm like, oh, got to go meet my wife. I'm like, oh, nope. I said I was leaving that in the truck. I go open my truck. I put it back in. I go see her get out of her car and I'm like, oh, I said I was going to open the door for her. I open the door for her. I stand in line. I tell her, man, you look beautiful today. And then I hold her hand while we order food. Well, why was I able to act on that plan? Because I already wrote the paragraph that made me aware of what I wanted to do so that I make better choices. And those better choices are going to lead to better results. And I just continually put this on a loop. So that's an easy tactical one. You can do that with your kids. You can do that with business. I'm going in a business meeting, a level 10 meeting. How do I want to show up? What words do I want to say? How do I want my team to feel when I leave? And I write this paragraph out. And it's not coincidental. It's not luck that when I leave that meeting, 9 times out of 10, it's exactly how I wrote that paragraph.
Yeah, it's that level of intentionality, right? And it's
Yes.
writing that paragraph can only take 3 minutes, you know?
Yes.
But it can not only give you, I don't know the right word for it, but when you put thoughts onto paper, can you describe why writing it out as a paragraph is more powerful than just me thinking it in my head?
Oh, absolutely. It's bringing all the sensory skills to it, right? So whenever I hear something, if I want to make sure I can use something again, I hear something I love, I just used my ears. I just use one sensory, right? Then I write it down physically. In doing so, I'm physically writing it down like the touch, but guess what else I'm doing? I'm visually seeing it as well. So now I'm not just hearing it. Now I've heard it, touched it, and seen it. And now the last thing to do is make sure that day I coach it. I say it to someone. And so when everyone's like, Cody, how in the heck do you get on a stage and like just like regurgitate whoever, whatever mentor, whatever quote, whatever book, I can even tell you what page it's on, because I make sure when I hear something I love, I write it down, which allows me to then see it. And then I also, in that day, I don't wait till the next day. That day, I share that quote or I coach that principle to someone. And then it's like downloaded into my computer. Like it's there forever. And now I can draw from it whenever I need to.
I love that. There's so many applications to that too. I mean, remembering people's names, remembering, if you're going on a seller appointment or your team's going on a seller appointment, what the notes were in the CRM about, what the favorite flavor of tea was the mom's, right? There's all these applications that can help you in life be super intentional with that.
Yes.
After focus, what do you think comes next?
So I want to make sure that I'm always getting 1% better. Like part of people's days is I do have my morning routine, which is working out. I do have my like spiritual time, or I have my growth. It can be meditation. It can be visualization. I have that in the morning. But over and above that, I spend an hour a day mastering the craft, like making sure I'm being better at what I'm doing. If I'm going to be a coach, then I don't want to just be a coach that's on the like cruise control. I want to be the best coach. And the best coach always sets apart time to make sure that they're mastering the craft. So I call it the 1 hour student. Every single day I carve out, and it's during the work time. So most people are like, oh, but that's work time. That doesn't bring money. Oh, yes, it does. I use 1 hour a day where I'm studying from either my mentors, something to better my craft. So if I want to be better at negotiation, then I'm going to spend an hour on negotiation. If I want to be better at leadership, then I'm going to spend an hour at leadership. If I'm going to do better at delegation, I'll spend an hour on delegation. So I really just take an inside, what do I need right now? Not what the world needs, not what Ryan needs. Like, what does Cody Hofhine need right now? I get real with myself so that I am studying what Cody Hofhine needs, not what the world needs, because that's what's going to help me get 1% better. And that's really all we're looking for is marginal gains, right? You heard that from Atomic Habits, just marginal gains. It's not a game of 100% improvement this year, just 1% every day. We do that, everything take care of itself.
Yeah. How do you, with all the success that you've had, how do you fight, I guess, the temptation or the natural complacency that comes with being comfortable?
Oh, it's so this goes now to community. Like this goes through the Jim Rohn, you're the average of the 5 closest individuals you spend the most time with. I make sure those 5 are always better than me. Like make sure those 5 are in a destination that you want to be at. That's the power behind the quote. And it's not the same 5 for every area. So it could be 5 for spiritual, and it's not the same 5 that's for physical fitness or for health. And it may not be the same 5 that I'm going to ask upon for parenting, right? Because I have some business gurus that are in my circle, but I wouldn't ask them for father advice because I don't think they're the greatest fathers, but they're fantastic at running a business, right? And so it's making sure that the people you're taking advice from are people that you would trade places with. If you're not willing to trade places with them, you also got to be willing to like and throw it out, like let it go, let it loose, because that can be where most people's, I guess, holdbacks, limitations come from, is they're talking to the wrong people. I used to talk to my mom and dad when I first got into rentals. I'm like, I bought my first rental. I thought they were going to be excited. Like, oh my gosh, that's a huge accomplishment. My mom's like, oh, what if they like do drugs in there and stuff like my dad's like, oh, my sister had an awful experience with rentals. And all of a sudden I felt it. I was sitting at the dinner table. I'm like, oh, shoot, what did I just do? Did I just do the wrong thing by getting into rentals? And then I called my buddy, Josh Christensen. I said, Josh, dude, did I do the wrong mistake? He's like, tell me the numbers. He's like, bro, if you don't want it, I'll buy it off you and I'll give you 10 grand above what you want. Like, I'll buy it. And I'm like, okay. He's like, just don't talk to your mom and dad about rentals. He's like, they don't get it. So don't talk to them about it. I'm like, truth.
Done. Yeah. Yeah. You wouldn't go to a fitness coach that's overweight, right? I think it's the same.
Nor would you go to a Walmart bagger and say, how do I make $1 million? Like, you're just not going to
100%.
input in is output.
I know it seems obvious as we're talking about it, but there's that inherent friction, right? Of my friends and family members are a lot of people's inner circle. That is the 5 people that they spend the most time with, right? Just because they are there. So
yeah,
how does somebody get that confidence within themselves to break out of that, to get uncomfortable, to not care as much what other people think?
Yeah, I think you need to have multiple voices. There's a verse that stands out actually in the Bible that actually goes hand in hand with this. It says, by the voice or by the witness of 2 or 3, or by the voice of 2 or 3 witnesses shall the word be established. Even Christ, during his biblical time, needed 12 apostles to go out and share the word so they could convert people, right? It wasn't just Christ going out converting people. He even needed his help to say, hey, I need another voice besides my own that says, this is it. And so there's 12 people that would go out and do it. If my wife was on this podcast right now, her answer would be some of them pretty close to what I'm about to say. She would say, you do whatever you can to listen to podcasts, read books, like get your mentor times. Like, she's never met John Maxwell. She's never met Robin Sharma. She's never met Darren Hardy. She's never met James Clear. She's never met any of these people. But if you talk to her, they're her best friends. They're like, oh yeah, me and James, we had a lunch date where we were talking for about an hour, right? That's how real it is to her. Is they're not physically in her life, but she spent time, like she took time out of her day to be listening to the podcast, reading the books, listening to all the different trainings. I have access to so many trainings. I have so many great mentors that I've paid for in my life that I have their trainings, and I'm like, my wife's just as involved as I am at that. So for those that are saying, gosh, how do I do this? Yes, sometimes it costs, but understand this: where you pay money, you also pay attention. Don't be afraid of putting out money, because when I put out money, I pay attention. Like, there's some of my mentors that are extremely, on a money point, they're expensive. They're not cheap, but I don't want cheap if I want to get to the next level. I want the best people. And when I pay money, man, my focus is like, I can't let this waste. I just paid a lot of money. So where I pay money, I pay attention. And sometimes it's not. It's just doing a podcast. That's free. Like, that's the greatest thing, is you can listen to all these people, Ed Milet, Tony Robbins, you name it. You can pick them up right now and just listen to them. And now you're surrounding yourself. Like Jim Rohn said, you're the average of the 5 closest individuals you spend the most time with. You're doing that by just making it a focus to just listen to them, learn from them. And when you hear all those voices saying the same thing, like, do this, do this, do this, you're like, it must be true. Like, it must be true. There's now 5 voices that just said this.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think it's difficult for people to really comprehend how many years they save by paying for mentorship, of not having to struggle through things and figure it out on their own, right? And what would you place a monetary value of a year or more, right? I mean, we're talking, who knows? It could be priceless. So in the social media age, Cody, I think you're probably the best qualified person to answer this. So no pressure. The razzle dazzle, I'm flashing the big checks, right? I'm wearing the watches, I'm doing all this crazy stuff. How does somebody that's about to start out, that brings about just a friction, right? It brings about a way to not commit to something, a hesitancy to really sign up with somebody. What are some red flags to look out for in a coach or mentor that you would say maybe you should seek out a few others or seek out some wiser counsel?
At Offer Now Idaho, we're looking to hire A players to run our organization and help us grow our business. Corey, why would somebody want to work with Offer Now Idaho?
Do you want to be challenged? Do you want to grow? Do you want to have people in your culture push you to be the best version of yourself? I do. And that's why I'm here. And in addition to that, do you want to have the chance at growing long-term generational wealth? That's all a possibility with a company that's small, cares about you, and wants you to be able to invest in real estate.
What's something that separates Offer Now Idaho from any other real estate company?
It's really rare to find a company that can help you get into a home. Sure, they might throw a few thousand into a 401k that you can access when you're 65. How many people are going to help you either provide a rental property or a shelter over your own head? Through our off-market home buying program, we assist our employees in buying properties once they've achieved certain levels within the company. And that's really unique to people because you get that asset. You get to do whatever you want with it. And you're buying an off-market discounted property to improve the quality of your life and your family's life.
Yeah, not only that, we offer benefits and we have a very challenging and high growth energy startup feel to our work environment. So we are looking for people that want to make over 6 figures a year. Right now, we have a $3,000 referral program. If you know somebody that's looking for a new role, we will pay you $3,000 once that person is hired by us and they hit their 90-day mark. So if you know of anybody that's looking for a new job or looking to change their life, shoot me a DM at Real Ryan Weimer on Instagram.
Let's get it.
Yeah, I'm a guy that kind of the proof's in the pudding. I'm the one that's looking for someone that's in the destination I'm looking for. Now, that's hard to say because there is that flashiness. You see all the people, it's like, oh, he's driving a Lamborghini. He's got to be great. Well, we just had a story pop up in Utah that a guy had, this guy had every car you can think of, and he had like a 20,000 square foot home. Well, we just found out he's in a $500 million Ponzi scheme and he's going to prison. So yeah, how do you know? How do you know? I'm not looking for the flash, the pizzazz, because the people that I have known that have been my greatest mentors actually don't drive Lamborghinis. They don't have the big flashy watches, the big flashy cars. And by the fruits you shall know them. I'm looking for someone first and foremost that fits me culturally and morally before I'm even listening to their content. So just like if a franchise owner for Joe Homebuyer, culture is 60% of the value of 100% if they can even be a fit, if they can even buy a franchise. So if they don't fit culturally, they're already 60%. They're already past the 50% mark. They can't even become a franchise owner.
Wow.
That's the same way I look at my mentors as well is, okay, Cody's, and I have them over here, is heart for others, humble, honest. And with Joe Homebuyer, it's hunger. With our home, we put that with hopeful. So we have the 4 H's. And so as I'm thinking okay, as a family, if me and Wendy are going to go hang out with the family, I'm going to see, are they humble people? Humble is just another word for coachable. Do they have a heart for others? Are they honest people? Are they hopeful people? If so, man, we're 60% there. Now let's see if this is like a cool relationship with the family as well. Same thing with our business or mentors. I'm looking at and saying, okay, are these individuals humble like me? Because I don't want to hear from an arrogant, prideful son of a gun. That's just not me. Yeah. It's not my style. I don't like it. It seems icky. It seems sticky. And for those that love it, okay, that might be your core value. Mine is the more meek, humble style, like a Robin Sharma. When I see him and I heard him speak, I was like, oh man, not only do I just align and hear what I'm hearing and it aligns, I even feel it. It's like you can feel the energy that comes from this guy. Tony Robbins, same thing. Now he's a louder voice than Robin. Robin's really meek and quiet. Tony's like, oh, right? A big old monster out there. Also, I am a person that I look at reviews, not heavily. I'm not going in there and studying all the reviews, but it's not hard to get referred to someone. So if there's someone you like and they're doing well in life, I'll say, hey, who do you know that I need to know? Who are you listening to that I need to listen to? What are great books that you're reading that I need to read? Because if that person's great, there's a good chance they're going to refer you a great podcast, a great book, a great event, a great mastermind, something to go to. So I'm always looking for who I want to become, and I'm asking them, who do I need to be listening to? Who do I need to be following? And then I'll go do that. And so that's one of the things. But they have to match. That person I'm asking has to fit morally, culturally with my values. And if so, that advice has never, what they give me from that point going forward has never steered me wrong.
Very, very strong. I'm curious, the 60%, right?
Yeah.
How did you arrive on that? That's such a, when I think about how people would evaluate that process, I can tell you for sure that it's less than 60%. And I think that that's just such a strong indicator and predictor of what could be either going wrong or what makes you have a really high batting average with finding the right people.
Yeah. Let me give you a simple scenario that like probably be easier to grasp it. Everyone's looking for a great closer, a great salesperson. So let's say I hire a great closer, but this great closer just killed someone last night, like physically murdered someone and is going to prison. Okay, well, he hit the tab. He hit what I was looking for. I was looking for a great closer, a great salesperson. I found that. But morally, culturally, he doesn't fit. He just murdered someone last night. So culture and values weigh way more than the skill set, because you can have someone that's a great closer, but if they're lying on the phone saying, oh yeah, we cover that, yep, we do that, yep, oh, all day long, there's no one that does it better than us, and then we actually don't have that, or we're not even like, bro, you told them it comes with this and we're going to send out this in the mail. We've never done that. That's not even part of our process. Why'd you do that? Well, I needed the money. I needed to close them. Right? So it's values. So he broke my value of honesty. And that alone just said, see ya, you're not a fit, right? So culture's everything. It's everything. It's 60%. If you don't fit culturally, I don't care how great of a closer you are. If you don't fit culturally, it's not going to work at my place.
Yeah. And I think that creates so many less future problems for yourself too, because it's easy to say yes and make an exception, especially if said salesperson represents 60%, 70%, 50% of your revenue, right? I mean, those are some of the hardest decisions I've had to make in firing people when they violate core values, but they're making a large percentage of the pie. However, it's going to sting now. You have to do it in order to become the person, the company, the team you want to become. What are some methods? Like how can people learn how to identify that?
Oh, so good. So good. And I hope this is understandable. So be my ear if I'm breaking it down simple enough. When I'm interviewing individuals, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say it just like this. So maybe let's hurry and do like a 1 minute, like just practice on this trial run, me and you. So you come in, you're getting interviewed for my company. Okay. So I'm going to ask you this question. Hey, Ryan, tell me this. I just want the names. That's it. You don't have to say it. Don't explain anymore. Just the names. I want 3 names of people that either motivate you, inspire you, or make you want to just become a better version of yourself. What are the 3 names that come to your mind of those people?
I'm going to say my father. I'm going to say my COO, Corey Miller. Okay. And I'd probably say my mother as well.
Awesome. Now here's the second question I'm going to ask. Okay, tell me 3 characteristics of each one. So not the story, not the anything, just the 3 characteristics of each one that you admire about them, that inspires you about them. So let's start with your father. What is it about your father? What are the 3 characteristics? Like, is it honesty? Is it hard worker? Like, what is the 3 characteristics of why your father inspires you?
Yeah, I think tenacity. Okay. So never being average. I think having an abundance mindset, and I think the coachability.
Love that. What about your COO? What are 3 characteristics?
Oh man, he's a grinder. He's a grinder. He'll
hard
do
work?
any. Yep. I'll say his integrity is unmatched.
Okay. Now let's go to your mom. What are 2 or 3 things about your mom that inspire you? What are the characteristics?
Just always there, steadfast, and she's the biggest go-giver that I know.
Okay. Here's what you did that you don't know you did. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. When we talk about people that we admire, that inspire us, motivate us to become someone better, at the same time, we're saying something else. We're saying, I'm also that person, and that's why I love them so much, because we're attracting each other, right? So I either have those characteristics or I love them so much and I'm watching them that I'm working on acquiring those characteristics because they mean so much to me. And in either case, I'm super fine with that. So if mine at Joe Homebuyer core values are honest, humble, heart for others, and hunger. You said your dad, or you said your COO is a like grinder, just hard work.
Yep.
Okay. Hunger. And then you said your dad is coachable, humble. Your mom is loyal, right? Like I look at that and I'm like, oh my gosh. So what you did is you just spoke your core values without me saying, hey, what are your strengths? Then that's when you get the wrong question or wrong answers. And everyone's like, starts pounding their chest and they're like, oh, I'm so good at this. I'm good at this. I'm good at this. And all of a sudden you hire them. And the next day you're like, whoa, what happened to that guy? Because the guy that came yesterday said he can do this. And today he is not that guy. Like what the crap just happened? It's because we didn't ask the question right. Ask them of who inspires them and why they inspire them. And they're going to, in their responses, reveal their core values. If they align with your core values, 60% was just found.
Absolutely love that. That was a fun exercise. I've never been asked that before, so that was cool. What inspired you to start Wholesaling Inc?
Oh my goodness. That's a great question. So Wholesaling Inc. had started as it was at its infancy. I was one of the first students that went through the program. At the time, Tom has got a big heart. The guy's got a big heart. There was this guy that was going around the internet, like trying to fake sue, like suing, like attorney suing, lawsuits. All these coaches, Sean Terry, Joe McCall, Tom Kroll, like all these people, and they were all like people I was looking up to.
Yeah.
Anyways, they were all just dumb, false claims. What he was trying to do was scare the people why you don't want their coaching program and why you want to learn from me. And he just did it in this dirty way, like out of fear, scaring people why you don't want this, but do this. And so, which was great. It's like, great. You just probably attracted the people we don't want anyways as students. Well, Tom, his heart was always to just help people get past what he had. He had a similar story, like wife not being able to pay the bills, wife not being able to put food on the table. And so with that, he was just like, here I am with my heart, like out on the table, trying to help people overcome their life. And this guy's trying to do this. And he hates when people do that, when it's just simply not true. So I was on the phone with him and he says, Cody, and I was only a student at the time. He says, Cody, I think I'm shutting down Wholesaling Inc. And that's when Cody Hofhine, the bear, came out. I'm like, no, you are not. I'm like, you changed my life. And there are so many more Cody Hofhines out there that are looking for Tom Kroll as the mentor to change their life too. You are not quitting. And he's like, I just can't do it by myself. And all of a sudden this light bulb went off. I'm like, hey, I've had some great success going through your program. It was like trying to say this without sounding so arrogant. It's like the poster child. Like I went through it and it was like, I went through it and I was having awesome success. And I said, let's do this. I'll own 50% of the company. I'll run the podcast. I'll run coaching with you. No, let's show this guy he's wrong and let's continue to bless people's lives. There's too many Cody Hofhines out there. I'm not letting you shut doors. He's like, okay, let's do it. And that's when Wholesaling Inc. took off because we had two guys just like, we were going at it. And it was great. So what got into growing Wholesaling Inc. was actually a result of Tom going through a pain point. And that pain point is what got us to do this business together. So it ended up being a blessing. Like I said, pains are people's biggest blessings. He needed that pain so that we could have the idea to really blow that baby up and do it together.
100%. I love that story. Yeah, the best things come from failure, right? It's always the catalyst.
Yes,
gets us to the new thing. So same question for Joe Homebuyer. How many years later was that, and what'd you do in between?
Yeah, so they kind of overlapped. So I exited and sold my portion of Wholesaling Inc. in 2020. Joe Homebuyer was starting in 2019. 2017, I was down in Lake Powell. And as I was down there, I'm driving in this houseboat that was my business partner, Mark. And it was just this normal, nothing special. It looked more like a trailer on a pontoon going down the lake. And all of a sudden, this big, massive mama of a boat comes around the corner. I'm like, what is that? It looked like a spaceship. For those listening, and you're just like, well, what does that spaceship look like? It's called an Adonia. Adonia. Type it in Google and you'll see what I mean. It looks like a spaceship. It's this massive houseboat that have like 8 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, like gorgeous. And I'm like, what does one of those cost, Mark? He's like, oh, so they do them in timeshare. So it's multiple owners. Like it'd be like, you'd go in with like 6 people to own a boat like that, because they're like a $3 million boat. And I'm like, oh, dude, let's own one of those one day. And we just started dreaming. He's like, dude, it's a lot of money. I'm like, I know, I'm going to figure it out. So on the way home, me and my wife are driving home from Lake Powell. I'm like, my brain is just already like in visionary mode. I'm like, pull out a piece of paper, Wendy, pull this out. I'm like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to host our first scale event. We didn't have a scale event, by the way. So this is all on the spot. I'm like, we're going to train people, because we did $1 million our first year in business. And we had just continually grown to like 1.2, then it went to 1.7, then it went over 2 million. And we were just constantly just adding growth to our business. And I'm like, we have a blueprint. Like we have something that's worked for us. Let's share that blueprint with like those that want to pay to come down to beautiful Lake Powell and get on a boat. So we bought a share in one of these mama boats, like these big mama boats. And we hadn't sold anything yet. Mark's like, dude, we have to sell. I'm like, don't you worry about that. Like, I'm taking care of this. We ended up selling where it paid more than our share. And we had people sleeping on the top deck, like in sleeping bags. I sold so many. I ended up selling 20 people. Wow. We were like only looking for like 8. I ended up selling 20 spots. And I'm like, just so you know, all the bedrooms are gone. All the couches are gone. Like, you're sleeping on a cot on the roof. They're like, I don't care. I've got to be there. So we have our first event. Then we started doing that every single year since. And then we started hosting scale events, 3-day workshops at our office. Well, we saw people going from 6 figures to 7 figures, and it was like happening often. Like people were calling back, oh my gosh, that's our best year. We went from 500K to 1.2 million. And it just like, Mark, this is it. Like there's no coaches teaching this. Like, instead of doing this, let's turn this into a franchise where we're a family, so that we're with each other the rest of our lives. And Joe Homebuyer was born. So those same process systems that showed people. And then since then, so many more improvements and better processes, systems, and AI and all this fun stuff that we're able to add to the game has happened as a result of scale, just a vision of how to get on a bigger boat. That one vision led to a program. That program led to Joe Homebuyer. And now we're one of 2 franchises out there, models that allow people to come to us that are already doing business. We're not like the Wholesaling Inc. We want Wholesaling Inc. to continue to teach people how to do their first deal. But when they're ready to scale from a 6-figure business or 100,000 to do $1 million plus a year, it's like, that's our baby. That's our avatar. And we've been serving those individuals since 2019. And we now have about 95 franchisees nationwide.
Incredible. You said 95.
Yes.
Incredible. I know you mentioned culture. What is the most common attribute of a successful franchise owner?
Holy cow. This is going to go to an easy one for me, because you can be humble and still not be great at going to get business. You can be honest and still business may not happen for you. Business is tough. Entrepreneurship is tough. I don't want to sugarcoat that. So I would say more in line with the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. They did a study on grit, and that's something I can't teach. That's something Tony Robbins can't teach. In fact, Tony Robbins says, hey, I can get on the phone and inspire someone from a 4 to a 10. Like, give me an hour and I'll juice them to a 10. He says the problem is if they don't believe it and keep doing the work, 2 days later, they're back down to a 4. He's like, that's not on me, that's on them. So grit, that like stick-to-itiveness, that I got kicked off the horse for the 100th time, but now I'm back up again. In fact, there's a cool... It is Augmendino. It's a talk I share on stage all the time. And it says that I will persist until I succeed. Not I will persist until it gets hard. I'll persist until someone tells me to pound sand or you're a piece of crap. I will persist until like the 10th time someone slams the door on me, or I will persist until 6 months from now. And if I'm still not positive, no. Augmendino in is it the richest? What is it? The richest man in the world? What is it? I can't remember his book. Anyways.
Is it Richest Man in Babylon?
Not in Babylon. No. It is Greatest Salesman in the World, I think, something like that. Okay. And he talks in scrolls. That's scroll number 3, Augmendino. So look up Augmendino, and then I will persist until I succeed. It's not just persist until it gets hard. It's I will persist until I succeed. Knowing that it's more in line with Theodore Roosevelt that says, I will fall and fall and fall again, knowing that my next, right, the man in the arena. But we're amongst the people of those that dare greatly. Like, I love those words, right? So that's what I would say is something I can't teach, but that's definitely a differentiator for those that succeed or really like accelerate and go past what they even thought was capable, is because they just have this grit of, I don't care. Yeah, I did it wrong today, but I don't care. I'm waking up and I'm doing it tomorrow, versus, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should go back to my bed. Oh, maybe I should go back to my comfortable job. Maybe I should go back to my comfortable life. No, my
Yeah.
friends, it's hard. It's not easy. It's hard. But
Yeah.
if you have grit, it's a reward. Like, there's great stuff that comes with hard. Life's not supposed to be easy. The road to greatness isn't easy. It's hard.
Yeah. And I think that is a perfect segue to talk about this market that we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years, especially, right? This period after COVID, right? Where COVID was kind of monopoly money and Looney
Such a
Tunes
weird
and
time.
yeah, you get anything under contract and it sells with multiple offers. Now to a point where interest rates went up, costs per lead, cost per contract are going up. Competition, depending on your market, could be less because it's harder now. Can you talk about some of the things you've seen change in wholesaling now from when you got started?
Yeah, it really, I mean, 2015, what's crazy, I wish it was like this again. You could send out $1,000 worth of postcards and you could pop a deal or two out from $1,000
Wow.
postcards. Far from that now. Like, you're popping out mega more money than that. So that's a huge change. Again, going back to this, how you would wholesale a deal, right? You send an email out to your potential buyers, your partners, and you'll send out the email that says, hey, here's the contract that allows you to purchase 123 Main Street. Do you want to basically fill in for me and buy this? So that was easy. And 20 people were like, yeah, I want it. And then all of a sudden, boom,
Yep.
It goes on a bidding war. It's not that. Now, here's something interesting, is because we're a national brand and we have our eyes on national territories, meaning all of our franchisees, this was something that was a gift that I didn't realize the value until it was happening. And that is the data, how important it is. I mean, be tied to our data and then our board, like the board that sits on the board for Joe Homebuyer. One of them is an economist. He came to us in 2021. Nate Alvey, one of the greatest human beings you'll ever meet. He comes to us and he says, hey guys, just so you know, this was March of 21. He says, hey guys, just so you know, Q3 of 21, it's going to be a bloodbath. Like, rates are going up to 8 to 10% if I had to guess. And we're like, bro, how do you pull that? Like, how do you even pull that out of the air? And he's like, you guys, here's what I'm tracking. And he might as well have spoke French at this point. I was like, okay, yeah, that's great that you're tracking that. But to him, it wrote a story. And the story is Q3, rates are going to 8 to 10%. And he says, so here's what I would suggest. We've always heard of fight and flight. The third F is coming out in the third quarter, and that is freeze. And he says, your buyers are not going to make the same mistake that they did in 2008. They're not going to deploy money. They're going to freeze their money and sit on the sidelines until they find out what the heck is going on and what's going to go on. So you guys are going to have to figure out something to keep sales going, or your business is going to dry up. And we were kind of like, there was a little bit of that, like, are we sure? But when you hear and you saw the stuff and his passion behind it, in March of 2021, we were already 7 months ahead of everyone in the nation that trained our disposition to now be a salesperson versus just a process driven, send out an email, get 20 people to say, I like it, bid it up, see you later.
Yep.
It was no longer going to be that. It's going to be more like McDonald's. McDonald's don't sell hamburgers. They sell happiness. Their number one meal in the world is a Happy Meal that doesn't deliver happiness, by the way, but somehow they've connected happiness to it.
Sure.
When they say, come get a Coke, they say, come get a Coke and a smile, right? They're trying to attach happiness to everything they sell, whether it's healthy or not. We needed to now sell happiness. It could no longer just be a process-driven person. So now, March of 2021, we had our acquisition managers help us build out the process to get on with buyers. And they were kind of like, why are they calling us to see if we want it? Like, we're like, hey, did you see the home on 123 Main Street? Oh my gosh, Ryan, I know what homes you like. This is right up your alley, bro. You got to go see this one. And they're like, cool. Well, we were already training to sell happiness so that in Q3 of 2021, when the rates actually did do exactly what Nate said, we already had the process in place. Everyone else's business, like, woof, overnight, their buyers list dried up. We didn't. We picked up the phone and kept with our process, and all of our Joe home buyers across the nation, we kept thriving because we were already doing what needed to be done. The pivot was already made 6 months, 7 months prior to this actual event actually happening. So we picked up the phone. Hey, have you looked up this home at 123 Main Street? Dude, I'm kind of just sitting on the sideline right now. Ryan, I understand. I totally understand. But let me tell you what, the last 7 months, you were paying the top dollar when you would buy some of our deals. You may pay the bottom dollar. Do you know why? Because not as many people are going to go on this deal. I'm telling you, you're missing the boat if you don't go look at home 123 Main Street. This is right up your alley, dude. This is your slam dunk. This is your bread and butter. Go take a look, and you might get it for the lowest price out there. Bro, okay, I'm going to go look at it. Awesome. Pick up the next one. We were moving people when everyone else had a frozen cash buyers list. Ours were still trained to go out and look at the deal because it might be a better deal now because there's no competition. And we changed the game on how we continue to thrive in a downward market.
Yeah, so smart, so smart. And I think too, I'm curious your thoughts on focus when it comes to not only acquisition strategies, but exit strategies as well. You know, now we've got creative finance, we've got novations, we've got, you know, installment contracts, we've got wholesaling, we've got flipping. With your franchise owners, how do you keep them in a core line of focus so they don't get, you know, stretched in too many directions, both financially and in building their business?
So that's a double-edged sword. If we were teaching a beginner that had never done a deal, I would probably just say, hey, it's just wholesale. Don't touch anything. In fact, I know I'd say that because that's the route I did to get where I am today. We didn't do our first fix and flip for, oh goodness, year and a half, 2 years into the business. And it was a $5,000 rehab budget too. So it was like, if we're going to do it, let's do it on something that's like very, very little margin having to put in. However, because our avatar comes to us already doing deals, a lot of individuals to go from the 500K to the $1 million mark, they're going to need more exit strategies. So I don't know if this is the answer you're looking for, but it's definitely the one I believe in. And that is, you do need multiple exit strategies. So we train our franchise owners, we train them, look at every deal on how to maximize how much you make on each deal. Now, if I'm thinking of fix and flip, hey, I want to fix and flip this one. If I can get between 70 to 80% of what I think I'm going to make as a fix and flip on a wholesale, I'm taking the wholesale. Like, there's no way I'm going to spend the 3, 4, 5, 6 months to fix and flip for an additional 10, 15, 20%. Like, nope. I'm passing on that. I'm taking the wholesale, move next. But if it's like, man, I'm making 20,000 on an assignment, or I can make 80,000 on a fix and flip, and it's only going to take me 3 months. Okay, I'll take that on. Like, that's a significant jump. So we're training them how to maximize profits on each deal. And that does, unfortunately, fortunately, depending on how you look at it, require multiple exit strategies. And so I'm a huge fan. At the very beginning stages, if someone's listening, like, I've never done a deal before, don't listen to me. It should be one unique focus. It should be just wholesale. Start printing the cash, start getting something in process in place. But those that are 6 figures and like, how do I get to $1 million? What could be holding you back is not enough tools in your tool belt, not enough exit strategies. And we get the best people. I mean, if your group that's listening right now goes to thejoeway.com, they can get their hands on a free download that it's literally our Joe process for our 5 steps of negotiation with training videos. It's free to your audience. But on that page, you'll see Pace Morby talk about why Joe Homebuyer is so good. Brent Daniels, Jerry Norton. Brent Daniels actually owns one of our franchises. Jerry Norton owns 10 territories of our franchise.
Wow.
Pace Morby was talking high about it. So they're all on there, those testimonials. But the point I'm trying to make, I guess, is we are such good friends with what some people would say, well, Pace is a comp, like he's a competitor. So is Brent. So is Jerry. No, we're not. We're collaborators. Like, we work together. Pace does some of the trainings for our sub 2. Brent does how to do the cold calling. Jerry does agent deal dominations, and they live within our portals of Joe Homebuyer. Like, it's a beautiful thing. Their stuff is there. Why? Because we partner with great people, and everyone's like, oh, well, how do you do the best? We just make friends with the best people, and we let them be the expert within our portal so that people are learning these exit strategies from the expert.
Yeah, and it comes back to that abundance mindset, right? Because when you do that and you're collaborating with the best people and you're all sharing those ideas and resources, it's not 1 + 1 = 2 anymore. There's a real multiplier effect that happens.
So true. So true.
Do you think grit is something that can be taught, or do you think it's something deep inside you? This isn't the first time or last time the real estate market is going to have a change. And so
No.
what mindset can a listener draw from, grit being a high quality and what delivers success?
Yeah, I think people with grit can inspire people, but I don't think grit is a process driven to train you how to do. I think that core value is something you can learn, but you're going to have to learn it. There's people that just desire it. They have this like desire to be the best version, and then you have people that are like, "Oh, I'm fine being mediocre. I'm fine just being average." Okay, that's great. I can't teach that average person to want to be a top 1%er. Like you just, and Tony Robbins would say the same thing. But can they want it? Yes. Like, yes, if there's anything true, especially if we go into like now the neuroscience and all the stuff that exists and the data that exists, if there's anything true, the truth that everyone can get from this podcast, this episode, is we are built to change. That whole old dogs don't learn new tricks, that is garbage. That is not even a quote that's worthy of quoting anymore, because we are seeing that when people put in habits, yes, it's hard at first, messy in the middle, before it gets gorgeous in the end. And the process, they're saying, is not 21 days. Everyone, it's kind of all over the place depending on their mentality and their momentum and how their mindset is with it. Yeah, some people might be 10 days and they can install a habit. But for most, that process, they say, is around 66 days. The first 22 days is the deconstruction of your old habits. And that's hard. Like, I've been for 25 years doing this, and all of a sudden I wake up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym. It's like, I haven't been waking up at 5 a.m. I've been waking up at 7 a.m. So your body's like, stop, no, go back to bed. What are you doing? It's going to be hard at first because you're deconstructing the old habit. Well, then you're installing during those next 22 days the new habit. And this is where it's like, okay, I'm starting to see a little bit of this, but I'm still confused. I'm still like, I don't know, like, does it work? Does it not work? And then the last 66 days is what they hit a point of what's called automaticity. That's where it becomes automatic. When it becomes automatic, it's now gorgeous. It's no longer hard. It's no longer messy. It's now just like, oh, I desire this. I want this. This is gorgeous. This is fun. You start to look in the mirror and you're like, man, I'm even looking a little bit different when I wake up and I work out. So you're starting to see some of the fruits. You're starting to see some of the results. And because of that, it just starts wiring, right? Well, if you look at inside someone's brain, what's going on is all this stuff is changing. You're getting new neural pathways, and they say the neural pathways that wire together, fire together, right? That fire together, wire together. And you're creating these new neural pathways. You're creating these new habits, these new super highways for your brain to function on. We are built to change. So if someone says, it's just not in me. I wasn't blessed with the right genes. Quit looking at the genes. Like, at the end of the day, you have a gift to change. We are built in the greatest DNA. I'm a very spiritual guy in the sense of, you have the DNA of a king, of a god. Like, absolutely you can change. So that's what I want. I guess the message I'd say is, yes, if you don't have grit now, don't say like, oh, well, I don't have grit, I'll never have it. No, you can, but you need to do the work to go get grit.
I love that. So if someone is listening, they're ready to run through a brick wall. They're like, this sounds exactly like what I want to do. I'm ready to change my life. I want to talk to Cody about maybe a Joe Homebuyer program. I guess, what markets are available, or how should they go about that decision process of what market to choose?
Yes. So kind of for Joe Homebuyer, you can go learn more for sure, like the joeway.com. That'll give you a giveaway and already start giving you some examples of what it is.
Sweet.
You can go to joehomebuyerfranchising.com to learn more about what that opportunity could look like. But are you saying, like, just in general, if someone's like, hey, I want to get started in the game, like, is this like a beginner? Like, what market should I pick, or what help me understand better how to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. One of the biggest questions that I get on social media is, where should I invest, or where should I start my operation? Or maybe it's somebody that's already started and looking to expand into a second or third market.
Yeah. Well, now it just depends if it's going to be virtual or in person. So if it's going to be like your major markets like Texas, Utah, Arizona, let's just throw those three out for now. I would say personally, and just I see a lot of data that supports this, and that would be the on-site going on appointment groups are going to eat you for lunch if you try to do that virtually.
Yeah.
Major markets are not a great virtual strategy. Virtual strategy is good for like your smaller markets where there's not as much competition, where there's not as much hype, where the median household, not income, but just the price, median house price. Like Arizona, you're at pushing 650, 750, right? Same in Utah.
Yeah.
Most places in Texas, the exact same thing. Like that's a great face-to-face market to be in, one in your background. But if you say, hey, I want to do virtual though, great. Then I would do where the average is like 300K or less, 250K or less. That's a great virtual market that would work for you. And so I wouldn't be worried about too much the where as much as making sure there's enough population, because the truth behind investing and in finding great deals, it's always tied to two things. It's either a depressed or a distressed property, or a distressed or depressed individual. And so you just that's in every market. There's not one market that's voided of this statistic of someone possibly going through bankruptcy, possibly someone losing their job, possibly someone to relocate, possibly someone that just inherited mom and dad's bad home and it needs 40 years of love because it's been unattended to for 40 years and they don't have the money to fix it up to put it on the market. That exists in every market. That's the beautiful thing. So you don't have to really focus on the where as much as make sure you have at least, I'd say, 250,000 population if you're going to go somewhere. And if you're going virtually, just keep it below 300,000 as the median house price. And I would steer, if you're going to do backyard, it's like, great. I'd say go anywhere. If you're just like, no, I just want to do it in my backyard. Good. Go do it in your backyard. All those scenarios that I just said, those exist.
Yeah. It's less about where you choose and more about that you just do it. Right.
Just do it. Yeah. Just go act.
I have one final selfish question for you. So I'm pretty sure it was you when you were running your Utah operation. I believe you guys went into Indianapolis for a little bit, if I remember that correctly.
Yeah, I know this story very well.
I'm definitely in the camp of dominate your local market. However, I do think at some point there is an appeal to a market that's maybe more stable than where you're at, especially if your home market is a Denver West, just like you were talking about with those elevated price points. After that experience, what would you say now if someone's looking to expand? When is the right or wrong time to do that?
Yeah. Let me tell you where I went wrong when I did that the first time. I was I thought, man, there's a couple people going over to Indiana and they're doing well.
Yeah.
So we opened up the first week. Our acquisition manager that we hired just strictly to do that virtually comes to us and says, I got these 2 homes under contract for $3,500. I'm like, oh, that's sweet. He's all for both of them. I'm like, what? I'm like, 2 homes for $3,500? This doesn't make sense. Like, we're the first week in and we just scored a slam dunk. Like, we're going to make so much money in this state. And then on the back end, no one wanted them for more than $1,000 total. So we sold it for $4,500. No one wanted them. Like, we were everywhere trying to sell these. And everyone's like, that's a crap market. Oh, those are awesome. Those are just teardowns. It's not even worth the land it's on. And we're like, oh my gosh. Like, I thought for sure. I'm like, you can't even buy a trailer for $3,500 in Utah. And we bought 2 homes. And it amounted to $1,000. I'm like, look at all this work we just did for $1,000 when our average assignment in Utah at the time was like 35,000. Also, a truth was because we put so much focus on that, we thought we had this process and system over in Utah dialed in and the team dialed in. We put up a month that was a goose egg. Well, our expenses for the month were $50,000 between like salaries, marketing was $50,000. So we went in the whole negative $50,000 because we thought it'd be cute to go into another market. So to make it short, we pulled out of Indiana, cut it out like it was cancer, got this back on track, built it in place to where we had a team-driven, process-driven, system-driven. And then from there, we were able to expand. We've expanded in Texas. And we've also expanded again, this is how I know some of the data, like don't do virtual if it's going to be some of these major markets. Texas worked, but it wasn't the numbers we were still looking for virtually. In person, I still think Texas is fantastic. But we do now in North Carolina, and we've been there for a few years now, and we do fantastic in North Carolina virtually. So much so that we moved one of our acquisition managers that was originally from there back home to just now be boots on the ground and be there physically because it's such a an awesome market. But that's an awesome market for that. But what needed to be in place is the system, the process, the team, so that with or without Cody or Mark in the office, that money was still happening, process was still being followed, systems were still being the driving force, and that repeatable income was coming in every single month. Once we had that, allowing us to grow to another area is great because I do want to be more impactful. I do want more streams of income so that I'm also building up wealth. I'm also building a dream or a vision so big that my team's dreams fit inside it. My teams want to go on vacations. They want this, they want that. And I'm like, great. If you want that, that means I'm going to have to build a bigger dream or bigger vision so your dreams can fit inside of it. If not, they're going to go work for someone else that will fulfill their dreams. When people are like, oh, I jumped ships, ask them why. It's because their dreams weren't fulfilled. So you need to know your team's dreams, and you need to build a vision so big that their dreams fit inside that dream or inside your vision. So we're really good at that. It wasn't like that all the time, but we're really good at that now. And that allowed us to now scale to multiple territories.
I love that. And that just really summarizes, what could be perceived as a failure, right? Of trying another market, but really taught you everything of what not to do when you did expand. And now with a franchise model, it gave you that confidence of like, no, we know exactly what needs to be fixed. We just need to tweak little things, and we need to not be in the war zones, and we need to, need to get everything dialed in so that we can really go attack at this. And so I just love that, right? Everything that we do, it comes from this feeling of failure initially, but unfortunately what's taught in school is failure is a bad thing, but in real life, failure is a good thing. So,
right. Or if you like the real world, you have to collaborate. In school, it's called cheating.
100%. And it takes a while for people to really undo that. And a lot of people never do. So that's
many ingrained traditions, right? For the sake of tradition. Everyone goes to college, and it's like, okay, but what if you don't? Have you thought about that one? I didn't go to college. And by the way, I'm not poo-pooing college, but I'm just saying, do you ever ask yourself, do I want to, or is this a tradition thing? Or does mom and dad want me to? Like, is this a tradition thing? Because that's what you do. So you can go get a safe income, a safe retirement, and whenever I hear the word safe, now I'm, at least at my age now, I'm like, whenever I hear safe, I'm like, oh, don't show me that path. I don't want any safe paths.
Yeah. I think that the definition of what's safe for the older generations, especially because of pensions and everything, where it was common to stay with a company for 20, 30, 40 years is now completely different.
That dream is long gone.
Yeah.
Middle 90s, that dream was gone.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Cody. Anything you want to, we'll include the show notes to Joe Homebuyer and that incredible free content. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else you want to leave the listeners with?
No, other than you got this. Like at the end of the day, if you've heard something that inspired you, I'd say the biggest thing that I would tell you is start training the brain from the moment you feel inspired. There's a gap between inspiration and action. Close that gap. So if you were inspired today, don't just say to yourself, oh man, that was an awesome podcast. If you're inspired today, say, I'm inspired and it's making me do this action, and do that today. Like, don't do it tomorrow. Train your brain to close the gap from the moment you're inspired to the time you take action. If you can train your brain to do that, it's a magical thing. It's really just the speed of implementation. Don't sit on it. Don't stew it. Don't build a perfect plan. There are no perfect plans. Just act upon the things you were inspired about today, and good things will happen.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for all the goodwill that you give, Cody. Thank you for being such a go-giver, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.